live, and we are live. So, here we go. The title is on here. We're with Shane Fernandez to announce the USA BMX Freestyle Primer National Amateur Championship Series, something that you have been very, very, very closely involved with. And before we get too far into what that is, I want to meet you and kind of hear who Shane Fernandez is, how you got involved with this, why you're doing it, and then we can talk about what this is.
Oh, awesome. Well, Brent, again, thanks for having me on, and thank you for a lot of the conversations that you were responsible for helping us with. So, yeah, so originally from Los Angeles, California, grew up in Hollywood. Back in my day, rode freestyle, and I've always got to be careful when I say this, especially with some of the talent that I'm around. So yeah, I'm a freestyler. By no means am I, a pro. But so I used to ride at Pipeline in California and Upland, and back in my day, it was Eddie Fiola was a guy just killing it at that time. And and freestyle for me was always it was interesting because it was a way for me to get out, escape. I explored on my bike, and I like the freestyle because the freestyle bike in particular, because you could do tricks on it and go to a BMX track too and hit the jumps if you wanted as well. So I got left there and eventually went to Oklahoma for my degree in architecture and master's in urban design. And to make a long story short, about 6 years ago, the mayor of Tulsa, the city was embarking on a huge project to bring some epic kind of development to Tulsa so that we could go head to head and surpass Austin, right? So if you don't know much about Tulsa, it's awesome. It's grassroots, a lot of live music and things like that. And so there were museums in discussion, river development. We have the Arkansas River that cuts through Tulsa, and but one of the discussions was BMX, especially our racing side. They are here for the Grand Nationals. They've been in Oklahoma for several decades.
Yeah.
It's in the United States. And so the mayor said, hey, called me up. He said, I went from LA to living in a house here in Oklahoma. I've got a motocross track in my backyard, right? So it's pretty cool. But he said, hey, you ride motocross, you love BMX bikes, and you've been a big cycling advocate. And what would you go talk to USA BMX and see if they'd be interested to move their headquarters to Tulsa if we built that for them? So it worked. USA BMX is a big fan of Oklahoma, and the location worked well. Had to go through City Hall and get that on ballots and votes, and had to do some designs and construction estimates, but it worked. It's here. So got to know the staff, BA, the CEO, and John David over there, and the rest of the racing team, and really fell in love with the group, the culture, and again, just cycling's in my blood. So they invited me to come over. I was actually building the new facility. So as we speak, we're putting in, or my older group is putting in foundations for a $23 million BMX covered arena with a supercross track and the headquarters. And so BA said, hey, I've had some experience as well running some nonprofits and setting up some foundations that have gotten national attention. And he said, we got a foundation, we got BMX, it's in Tulsa. He said, he has a lot of vision in terms of where the sport can go. And he said, you've got a lot of experience in coming up with some creative ways to make things happen. And freestyle was a discussion because I brought that up. And of course, I knew the history. And he said, we would love to, kind of wipe the slate clean and take a complete look at it and start from scratch on that and see what we can do, because they have a huge passion for it as well. And so I guess I officially moved over to USA BMX in January. COVID hit. So at that point, I used that opportunity while everybody was kind of contemplating a lot of things to just make a lot of calls and set up focus groups specifically about freestyle and what where it could go and what people's vision and needs were.
And then that has resulted in the USA BMX Freestyle Primer National Amateur Championship Series It's a lot to
Right.
say, but it's all necessary because it's all part
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
And what exactly is that?
It is so at the 30,000 foot view, it is a way to engage and give access to the entire spectrum of freestyle riders that are on that amateur level, right? So, and it's just a start. And Brant, you and I have talked about this in today's conversation. I want to be really transparent. There are things that we've put in place that are actually that are happening. But there's a lot of dialogue that has to happen this summer. But I want to have that with the freestyle riders to talk about as this evolves, making sure that as we're tweaking this and putting things in place, that it's what the amateurs want. So this is the start or the foundation of, especially during this time where all events have been shut down on the freestyle side on a global level, right?
Yeah.
It gives the amateurs something to shoot for, and it gives them a starting point to start this journey. So it's in short, it's at least for 2020, we only have 6 months. So we're going to go straight to regional brackets. So there are 12 regions in the United States. So they'll go into a championship for that. Those top three competitors in each class will then transfer to the nationals.
And the very interesting part about this is how people are actually competing in this. So at first glance, it might sound like this is about to be something that you have to travel really far to go to be involved in, but it's actually not that at all.
Yeah, it's a yeah, and this is where it gets. I think is pretty interesting. So before I even talk a little bit about the format, if any of the people watching are riders, so you have Red Bull Rampage, and if you take a look at that, you got the downhillers doing their free ride loops. You got Crankworks, and already right now you have judges that are sitting in a room or behind a screen because physically you can't see the runs based on how it's set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a certified judge for gymnastics through USA Gymnastics when I was in college. And from that perspective, in terms of judging, it really, if I see it on a screen or if I see it in person, I can still, and in fact, I would say the screen is going to be a little bit tougher for riders because a judge can pause it and rewind and
Mm-hmm.
take a close look at something, whereas in real life they're not. So what this is there's two steps because COVID has really kind of um, has been the tail that's wagged the dog this year for everybody.
Yeah.
So on the regional side of this, it's going to be a hybrid series. So at first for the regionals, we're doing everything virtual. But I think the riders should understand that we're setting this up as close as we can to what a real competition would be like, and that there's no People's Choice Awards. There's no how many likes can you get on it. It is truly the most simplest form we could find in terms of a rider being able to pick up their phone, take a 45-second video, direct messaging it to our Instagram link with the text with their class and rank and goofy foot, their stance, regular goofy foot,
Mm-hmm.
and what region they're in and what gender. Um, that's going to be judged by a judging panel. And then the goal, and again, depending on COVID, plan A would be have a live event in December. We'd love to have that. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
But also, too, the last thing I want to do is overpromise. So again, you're going to hear me talk a lot today about just being transparent. That's what we want, but we have a plan B. And we have to make that decision roughly about October 23rd, because if you take a look at the timing and if they do have to go virtual on the nationals, we got to give those competitors time to rebuild another video.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
October 23rd for us is kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying, all right, where are we with COVID? And also what facility can accommodate this and do it safely?
Yeah. So a few of the big takeaways from this for anyone is that in BMX, there's been a lot of talk about things needing to happen for the amateur. There's a contest series a couple years ago that was a huge deal because it was an amateur contest series. And at that time, everyone talked about We need to do something for the amateur. And then a huge issue with this is the access of it. And we've talked about this a lot. The access of a contest series is that you have to get to that contest. So one, you got to have enough money to get there. And two, you got to be close enough to have enough money to get there. So the idea behind the start of that is that this is virtual so that anyone can be involved with it. There's no barrier to entry as far as location goes.
That's right. And the interesting thing I heard with especially with freestyle, I think, which makes it more unique, is if you look at the spectrum of an Olympian to your beginner, right? Um, you look at the racing side, and there is a structure. You can look it up. It's like you got to race this class. You transfer,
Mm-hmm.
and as your career progresses and you get better, there's a clear path to become an Olympian if that is what you want to do. On the freestyle side, it's been pretty organic, right?
Yeah.
And flowing. So, what we want to do is we want to do two things. Every year we have this series. We want to capture and give anybody a chance that has a phone and anywhere in the United States, Alaska or Hawaii, where it's simple. There's no glitches in technology. It's something they can do, and they do it every day. It's most everybody has it on their phone, and they can load it. However, we want to. That helps us figure out who are the players and who are the ones that are really consistent and have a lot of potential. And of course, I love these type of stories. Someone we've never heard of before, right? Well, what we'd like to do in the future is start it off as virtual, but when it gets to the regional level, at that point it becomes live. Because when my discussions with USA Cycling, there was a lot of discussions in terms of, can I call this a true national championship? Because the intellectual property and that title, especially in the cycling world, and USA Cycling, and how this would eventually feed into producing pros and points, that's a big deal. And they were so supportive of this. Robert DeMartini over there, who's a CEO, overwhelming support. So they were saying with a hybrid series, absolutely. But the thing that they wanted to see, they said, we love the access. We think that would be great because that's been missing.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, too, once we narrow down that field, they gotta feel what it's like to be on a course they've not ridden before, with judges they don't know, with a crowd, with pressure.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the goal would be, after in 2021, we'll add a state series because we have more time.
Yeah.
So everything statewide up to summer would be virtual, with the goal regional and national.
Yeah, and I think that's what got me so excited about this was just the fact that you don't have to, on the level below regional, you don't have to be able to get somewhere. You can just make your video, and then I'm not sure how it developed on your end after we talked the first time, but you talked about how from that level, the people who win that state, or now it's regional, the people who end up having to get somewhere, the people who make it and qualify for that, your goal is to help them be able to get to the next step and actually get where they need to go. Whereas right now in BMX, there are a lot of different contests out there that just anyone can enter. Yep. But there's nothing out there to help them get to that point.
That's right. One of the things that I found out, and I told to our team, this is way more about just events. This has become a socioeconomic opportunity. So I'm going to use the extreme angle of the spectrum. So we have a foundation here in North Tulsa that has reached out and said, hey, we'd love to build a freestyle team that for our at-risk kids to give them opportunity, to have something to shoot for, to have something to ride, and have some mentorship. So the goal would be in what I'd like to see is, sure, we could have sponsors that give us a bike, give us medals, swag. That's awesome. And I think we have to have that. But at the same time, too, we are pushing more so for access and an opportunity through empowering the riders. So what I would love to see is on the regional level, where we have Southwest Airlines or American Airlines that are saying, and we have a program where we say, hey, rider number A and District 12, buddy, you made the cut. can you get to the event? And he's like, and I heard this a lot in the focus groups. They would say, hey, I know that, my parents are divorced. I ride my bike to kind of cope and escape, and this is an expression of myself. But I can't get to that event, and I would love to be able to say, as part of the program, that we say, hey, you got a ticket, we got your hotel room, we can leverage different sports commissions and sponsorships, and I think that's how we try to build that access. That I think is going to be a little bit different than the way your typical competition is set up.
And it's amazing. It's seriously just so awesome to hear that that is something that you are striving for, because I don't think it's quite, the dots have been connected before now, and it's just really cool to see it develop and become a real thing.
Well, and I got to say, it is nothing that I've done. One of the things and it's no different than if we're designing a museum or a skyscraper, if you're setting up a nonprofit or a foundation, right? One of the things that I was adamant about was making sure that I didn't approach this from a sponsorship discussions at first. Not one discussion with anybody about, hey, would you sponsor this? It has been, I'll talk to you after we launch it, because what I really wanted was to hear what the freestyler said on every spectrum available. From the kid who's worried he's going to get shot tomorrow because he lives in a bad neighborhood but loves bikes but wants to learn more, to somebody who is getting ready for the Olympics but right now, because of COVID, they're kind of in this holding pattern. And then what does USA Cycling envision? What do the manufacturers envision? So everything we've launched really is been designed by freestylers, because really I just found the commonalities, and then just sat down and said, all right, how do we make this happen now, and realistic steps? And we've got to be very purposeful in this. This has got to be, Brad, I told you, from a business perspective, this has got to be lean and mean, because if we are truly trying to empower the amateurs, this has got to survive all the ebbs and flows of an economic downturn, right? So that's why we're saying it's guerrilla marketing. It's this is about as close as you can get, as I was telling one of my team members today, from back in the old days, where I'd get a call and say, hey, there's an apartment complex in Santa Monica, it's abandoned, the pool's empty, let's go. Right? This is just one level above that, where we're saying that grassroots, that guerrilla marketing, and by the way, we'll get some judges and manufacturers so that we can introduce you.
Yeah, and I feel like you've just done it in such a good way. Like, you've gone about it in an amazing way that just about anybody could get and agree with. And you just brought up judging. Judging is another factor that I think a lot of people are going to be concerned about, but it's also something that as soon as it was brought up to you, you're like, yes, we have to make sure we do this right, if you want to talk about that.
Sure, yeah. So it's been interesting, and you told me this was going to happen, and you were right. So as we went and had the different conversations with judges, with writers, there was a whole spectrum in terms of different philosophies, right? So from the writer's perspective, you had some amateurs or some writers who didn't care. You had some writers who had no idea how this worked. In fact, the questions were, and this is interesting though, the questions were, is there a set of guidelines that defines what tricks I need to know to be a beginner and an amateur? And it's like, well, that's interesting, right?
Good point.
That's a good point. Then you had the other side where it was like, well, I'd like my video to be completely confidential, because I want an unbiased opinion of my ride, and there's a perception that perhaps there's some favoritism going on the judging side. On the other side of the coin, you got the judges, and it was interesting because some of them would say, I asked them, I said, well, what about a confidential type submission? And this is much easier to do on an amateur level. Obviously, when you get into the elite level, they'd say, well, we know everybody's style and the bike, right? So the interesting thing was, on listening to them, was we would love to communicate and educate and inform the riders what we're looking for, but at the same time too, hear what they're looking for and what their concerns are. So one of the things that we want to do is our video submission is not due until October 3rd, and that's by design.
Mm-hmm.
Gives everybody time to kind of understand what this is, let this kind of gain momentum. But at the same time, too, one of the things that we have to work on is, and I want to make sure we set up some focus groups where we bring the judges and the freestylers together and have that dialogue to talk about what this looks like and the concerns, so that we can make sure we're addressing it. But that's probably the biggest issue and the most common issue that was communicated to me, and in terms of making sure we have that dialogue so we're not creating anything in a vacuum.
Absolutely, and that's another one of the things that got me so excited about all of this. It's something that I've heard so many people talk about, but I haven't heard or seen anyone take that next step to say we need to get this focus group together with the judges and the riders, and we need to talk together and figure it out. Whereas everything I've ever experienced up until this point is, if you're a rider and you feel that it's not fair, you can't say something because of the fear of what could come of it.
Yeah. Well, I put my, again, back when I was a judge on gymnastics, and it's interesting because you would hear at the time, the gymnasts would say the same thing, right? They would go to a different gym, and depending on that judge, they would have a different take on it, even in the same competition. If I was on the floor one time but was judging pommel horse and X, those athletes would have a differentiation. So there is certainly, especially when you get to the live competitions, what the amateurs have to be prepared for that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, too, it would be great to reopen that up, because I heard so many comments about, oh, there's a lot of theories on judging, even within the judging community. and then you had different theories of how to be judged from the rider community. So I understand that this topic has been around for a while, but I think it's also a good time to get some amateurs together and get some judges together, and let's have the talk, come up with something, and knowing that we just need to tweak this constantly. This isn't something that we can launch and say, all right, this is going to be awesome, and come back and look at it 3 years from now. It's got to reinvent itself every year to evolve.
And all the while, just like you said at the very beginning, you want that dialogue from the people involved and from people in general to help make it evolve and help get it to the best form it can be.
That's right. Right.
Which is awesome. And now I think we've covered pretty extensively what this is, but now we could talk about the how, I think. So,
sure.
So how's the contest, as far as we can go from the digital and work to the level of the championship?
Right.
How's that going to play out? So how's the digital contest work?
Sure. Okay. So between now and October, so first of all, I'll back up. And so if you go to USA BMX Freestyle, our Instagram page,
mm-hmm.
We have put a very simple post on there that we're just calling it the Primer Manual.
Yep.
And you can scroll through those photos, and it's like a little instruction book you can keep in your phone. And we tried to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
So the way it works is I've tried to hold myself accountable, where a rider from start to finish only does no more than 4 transactions. Okay, so really between now and October 3rd, the rider should be picking their parks and understand that they just pick up their phone and do a 45-second uncut video. And the reason it's got to be uncut is for obvious reasons, right? They've got to put together their run, and that's going to be tougher than I think people think, and that there's lots of strategy behind that, how that works. Once that video is uploaded, the process is right now they just direct message it to our page, and in the text they will just, and we've got it. It's in that we have a way we want you to
mm-hmm.
list your name and your age and your region and your stance. The stance, actually, Brent, was one of your recommendations, and that little thing everyone is like, that's genius, because the judge has to know if you're ambidextrous or if you're doing something goofy for the regular foot.
Yep.
So what you're going to see right now is between now and October 3rd, they can absolutely start working on that. What we have to do is we are putting up we've got a website, but it's a landing page right now because what we have to do is we have to set up a separate membership that's different than the race side.
Yeah.
And the reason is the race side has different classes, they're broken up differently. And so, in order to keep things again simple, we're putting that together. So, we should have that set up within, I'm going to say a month. If my team's listening to me, they're probably cursing me right now, but it's gonna be up in enough time before the October 3rd date.
Yeah.
So uh, once that's up, they go on there, they get a membership, and with the membership, there's no cost for the regional championships. There's also no cost to enter a separate competition that we're doing, which is through the USA BMX Foundation. So because on the amateur side, obviously we can't give out cash. There's other ways we can incentivize. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that we are pushing the creative arts as part of the culture. That came up a lot in terms of expression. So we heard music and filmmaking and things like that. So we do know that some videos are going to be cut and dry and just represent the writing, and that's okay. That's going to go to a specific judging panel. There'll be a artistic judging panel, completely separate. One score does not impact the other. And the USA BMX Foundation has come up with $4,500 that they'll divide between the top 3 most innovative videos as a completely separate competition.
Which is awesome. I didn't
Yeah,
know about that until just now.
yeah. So we just got that secured. So it's awesome. And then of course, once we get more streamlined, the membership allows us to start putting everybody in their respective regions and making sure we start communicating, because part of this is not this. The competitions are not is one of the things we're doing. It's not everything we're doing.
Yeah.
So we want to be sending out emails and pulling people together to let them know about educational pieces, mentorship opportunities, coaching, not just on writing, but I asked one of our focus groups, I said, okay, if you had an opportunity to win a free bike, or if I could get you in front, and I'm making something up here, if I could get you in front of the marketing director at Oakley and say, hey, would you sit down and talk about what you look for in a resume and what is things they could be doing now to make sure that if they're looking to go pro with this and make a living off this, what are ways and what are the lessons are good and bad that you've seen athletes succeed in and fail?
Mm-hmm.
And have those type of things across the board that we can push over to the amateurs. So that's from the side of the rider. That's it. 4 transactions.
Really awesome. And then
no special software. I'm going to they'll and then we will be doing updates on our Instagram page, and that also feeds our Facebook page too. But we're really using the website as just a landing page once we get up and running. But we're going to do all communications through Instagram,
which is awesome. Which is something we talked about the first time we talked. Is the Instagram is it? That's where everyone is at, and to not develop this program or app or website that someone has to go and figure out and use whenever they already know how to use Instagram. They know how to send a video. It's awesome.
And you got different ways they can do it too. I talked to we did a couple test runs, and I talked to a video producer, a friend of mine, and I said, hey, what would you pick? And he's like, man, your cleanest, easiest way is just Instagram. He goes, and especially they're everyone's on it already. So and our team actually came up with that. Our head of IT, we were talking about different methods, and he said, we could do an FTP site, but now you're downloading that, you're loading a file, and the file might crash because depending on what the computer is at the house, it might not be capable. So we're thinking keep it simple.
And with that route, you'd have to have a computer or get access to one. This way, someone, the random guy who's the best rider in his state and no one knows who he is, can go out there and use his smartphone or someone he knows smartphone and just send the video through Instagram. And it's just really cool. And I know so many people who could take advantage of that and get involved in this. And speaking of people who could get involved in this. We have 5 different classes on here as well.
That's right.
What
Yeah,
are
so we've
those?
got just so you know, we've got 10 and under, so both female and male classes. We've got 10 and under sport class, 11 and 14 sport class, 15 and over sport class. This one's going to be good. Masters 40 plus.
Awesome.
I've gotten some questions about that, and then we have expert open. So expert open is for the 10-year-old that is going to put everything out there, or the 27-year-old that is just going for it, right? So there's no
Yeah.
age limit on that. The UCI recognizes elite riders at 15 years old.
Yeah.
This is where it all comes together. I want to be really clear on this one too. One of the things that we heard and that I'm personally passionate about, all prizes, everything from here to the end of time is going to be completely equal between the male and female riders. So as we get sponsorships and this starts building, it's all going to be completely equal. So one of the things I do want to say is that obviously with 6 months, some of this obviously is by design in terms of being able to logistically handle this and not be overwhelmed because we've only got 6 months. I anticipate that 11 to 14 class being broken up into other classes. This will be a good test run in 2020 and 2021 to see what we start seeing. But I anticipate right in that age group, we might be breaking up and adding more classes in that age group specifically.
That's cool to hear too, and I think that you guys handled it really well. And that was another thing that we talked about the first time we talked, is that there's guys who are 15 and pro level, and that there's guys that are 35 and beginner level. Right. So you've handled that with the 15 and over sport, and then the expert open, allowing anyone of any skill level who feels that they are capable of getting involved with this to do so, and not barring anyone out.
Yeah, and you know the interesting thing about this, and this is what I truly love about the hybrid system, is like, so say next year when spring comes and we open up the state brackets.
Yep.
The reason the USA BMX Foundation came forward with that separate video competition was because of the teamwork involved with that, right? So it's going to be interesting because for that first part, there's almost a coaching session. I mean, there's a collaboration that has to happen to bring this to life. The rider has got to make sure that his buddy is getting the right angles, and then if you're going for the big innovative one, how smooth is it? How creative can you get with it? So, but at the same time too, still capture the tricks. So it's a. I really think that this is manageable and breaks it out, but I hope to see more growth in that 10 to 15 class where we can add more opportunity in there.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and I think you're doing it right. There's a lot of it that was very, very easy to get wrong and do in a way that a lot of people might not like. But you yourself are so focused on doing those things in a way that everyone agrees with and everyone wants. And there's a lot of this that we just haven't seen someone or people try to do in the BMX world yet.
Well, and I appreciate that, but like I said, this is the freestylers. It designed it, which is so cool. I would say, and I'll tell you another interesting thing. In all the conversations I've had, and especially the ones in the last month where this has really started taking form, from the Olympians and our pros to USA Cycling, there wasn't anyone that said, you know what, we're not going to support this. This doesn't represent our culture. It was the opposite. Everyone really sees that this is the start of something special, and that's the key word too. This is by no means a final product. This is a blueprint, and so we are starting with a blueprint to help any rider get from point A to point B, and trying our best to do it amidst a pandemic.
Right. Well, I think that's some serious motivation for the hybrid side of things, and it's just really interesting to see how this could end up playing out, I think.
Yeah. I think think there's a lot of opportunity in it. So I told myself I take off the passion I have for bicycles and I just put my business hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you take a look at anything you start. It always takes a couple years for it to gain traction. There's going to be some bumps and there's going to be some things we need to tweak. I fully suspect, based on just the conversations I've had and the passion with the focus groups, that I think everyone's going to know that. Again, this is our start. They're going to be hopefully they're going to be patient, but I also think that this is going to get some people excited. So I hope it's a start to something. I know it's a start to something extremely special.
I agree. I think it's going to be really awesome. What I would say at this point is because this is such a fluid discussion and things could change and things could come up and people can talk to you and you could get input. Where would someone want to go to follow this and get more information?
I would say right now, let's channel everyone to the Instagram,
Okay.
because I think that way, if they've got a question, they can direct message us and we can respond. Also, too, as things come up, we're going to be posting that immediately. So if for those that are going to jump off this and look at it right now, there's a step one slide and it just says read this,
Yeah.
and it's the manual, right? It shows you the basics of it. There's going to be a step two coming up. There's going to be updates. So we've had people already start reaching out about this. They want to know more about it. Some of the bigger influencers, and we've got some pros and manufacturers that would like to. We're going to be asking questions more so from the amateur focus in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, hey, manufacturer A. The amateurs, we have been overwhelmed with this question. Answer that for me and let me post it, right? So if there's on the amateur side, if riders have things that they see that they'd like to see, direct messages, because we will put that into our volume and make sure we're addressing those. But that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that dialogue going.
Once again, in the easiest and best possible way that it could be done, through an Instagram direct message.
Right.
You don't have to worry about figuring out an email address or anything like that. It's all right here.
Right. That's
That
right.
simple. And that is really awesome. I think that really answers it. I love how simple it all is.
Well, it's a my goal is to make it more simple. I don't know how yet, but we'll start here and we'll figure it out. And any constructive criticism from any of the riders is I am thick-skinned, and a criticism I look as an opportunity for us to just make this better. So, Brant, I also just want to make sure that your viewers hear this. I mean, you were such a inspiration in all these discussions. So thank you. It was interesting. A lot of things that in my notes that I took when you and I discussed. Oh, you're almost psychic. You echoed. I mean, all conversations. You were spot on. So thank you for that. And everyone should know too that we're creating this kind of this advisory council. So as things come in, I'm bouncing ideas from the amateurs, not only off of our team internally at USA BMX. We never want to work in a vacuum, but we are reaching back out to people like yourself, Brand, and a lot of the other people who have really taken the time. I would go through. There's going to be a slide we're going to put on Instagram. You'll probably see it by Monday of just thanking everybody who honestly took 30 minutes to an hour to sit down and kind of listen, communicate their concerns, their opportunities that they saw, and all of this is because of them. But Brent, you were certainly the catalyst to a lot of that. So thank you.
I got chills. That's really awesome to hear. And I think the biggest takeaways that we want to leave this with are transparency, access, fair judging, and just something that is made simple enough in collaboration with as many people as possible.
That's right. There's going to be a lot more focus groups.
Which is perfect. I feel like that's the best way to make something that's going to make the most people happy and not do it in a vacuum, like you just said. I was thinking that as you said. I'm like, This is not done in a vacuum, and it's amazing to see it that way.
Well, it's a start, that's for sure. So, Brand, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for just having me involved in doing all of this and making this live stream a thing and connecting directly with the people who could get involved with it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I'd say there's more to come. I think we should do updates as this goes, and give the riders a voice, and that's the big mission.
Absolutely, and we will. For now, though, we're going to end the live stream because I feel like we've gone through everything we need to.
So well, I appreciate everybody who was on the call and their patience. It's a
yes.
lot to digest.
Yes, thank you guys all for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.